Alrighty, well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Brittany, and I'm an admissions representative with Kansas State University Online. I want to thank you for joining us to learn more about our online nutrition, dietetics, and sensory sciences master's degree program. I'm joined by Erica Linshield and Dr. George Wong, who are going to spend roughly the next 30 minutes or so giving us a presentation about this program, and then we'll spend the last 10 to 15 minutes answering questions. Throughout the duration of this presentation, we will be monitoring the Q&A section, which you can utilize to ask questions. Some questions will be saved until the end for Erica and Dr. Wong to answer. And if you could now please take a few moments to locate the chat feature and answer the question that you'll see on the following screen, as we will love to learn a little bit more about you. And as those chats are coming in and you're getting familiar with the Zoom features, I also just want to let you know that we will be sharing a recording of this presentation following the webinar. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Erica.
Thank you, Brittany. And thank you all for joining this evening. So I hope today or tonight that we will go over some general information about the Masters in Nutrition, Dietetics, and Sensory Sciences. We'll also hit on our additional online only master's program, but we won't focus entirely on that, which is the Master of Science in Dietetics, and we'll sort of explain the difference between the two. So tonight, focusing on NDSS for short is what we'll call the MS degree program in Nutrition, Dietetics, and Sensory Sciences, is open to all of those individuals with a bachelor's degree. And this could be in nutrition or non-nutrition background. So we very commonly have applicants who are either career changers or looking to increase maybe their formal education in nutrition, but don't always have to have nutrition background. Now, I'll tell you that competitive applications will show success in some basic science courses like biology and chemistry. However, those are taken in many different fields and not just nutrition. And so it's one of our degree programs that is not so tailored necessarily to the type of student or requirements that we have to have, like the GPIDEA program. So the GPIDEA program is a Master's of Science in Dietetics, and GPIDEA is a consortium type model with many different universities who pitch in a curriculum, one curriculum it's taught at many different universities. And so Master of Science of Dietetics is specifically for those who have the registered dietitian nutritionist credential, or we like to call them soon to be RDs or RDNs, where they've done all of the coursework that they need to do. They've received their verification statement, but maybe they haven't done their internship. So those are the two different types of audiences that recruit for the Masters in Science and Dietetics. So you see that the NDSS program is not as narrow in terms of recruitment and or requirements for admission. Additionally to the NDSS program, there are different entry points, is I guess how I will describe it. So we have applicants that apply to the straight MS program after earning a bachelor's degree elsewhere. We also have students who are earning a bachelor's degree currently at K-State and are able to share some credits between their bachelor's degree and their master's degree. So we have this concurrent option for people who are already in the BS programs. So if you're in BS in Dietetics or in BS Nutrition and Health Online, then you can apply to the BSMS program. And the intent is that you sort of expedite and save some efficiencies between the two degree programs. Now, the concurrent program is for those who have not earned a previous bachelor's degree anywhere. So not just at K-State, but if I use myself as an example, I went to a different university before coming to K-State. I was a transfer student into K-State, and I had a bachelor's degree already. So I would not have been eligible to apply to the concurrent BSMS option. But we will focus, as I mentioned, on the Master of Science in NDSS tonight. So I hyperlinked some things here, and Brittany, maybe at the end, I imagine that this recording will be shared, as you mentioned. I don't know about the actual slide presentation, but all of this information can be found on our webpage. So I will briefly take a quick tour of our website just to show you where these pages are. However, in terms of what's required for admission, we do require, and it's not just the department, we actually have the graduate school or the university level requires that unofficial transcripts show a 3.0 GPA in the last 60 hours of their undergraduate work in order to be admitted for full standing admission. The concurrent program has slightly different GPA requirements, simply because the concurrent program, you have to identify if you want to be in the master's program fairly early on. Usually you're, I would say late sophomore, early junior year, which seems pretty early to think about grad school. But the GPA requirement is a little bit higher for that BSMS program, since those are students we need to feel confident in that will go through and complete both the BS and the MS program. So it's rather rigorous and, like I mentioned, expedited in some respects. Additionally, for all of our those who are applying to the NDSS program, we require 3 professional recommendations. And so I apologize, this should be updated. It's now been simplified. So we only have a simple Qualtrics survey for all of your recommenders to complete. So they're emailed the link once you put their name in your application. So it's actually emails them immediately. It doesn't wait until you submit your application. So your recommenders are emailed a link and they fill out a brief Qualtrics survey and submit that. And that is their recommender duties. There's no letters or other things that sometimes feel cumbersome for both the recommender and those who are reviewing applications. There's additional form that was created by our graduate faculty in Qualtrics, again, since that's our survey platform here at K-State. We call this our supplemental applicant information form. Now this form, you won't find it tied directly to your online CollegeNet application. However, you will you'll see the link in many of our pages on. So if you just go to our webpage, you can find the link and click on it and be able to access it and submit one now if you want to. So it doesn't, while it wouldn't make sense to fill one out if you weren't intending to apply, this is essentially a guided personal statement. So many times in graduate school and in professional programs, you see a personal statement or a personal essay to be a part of that application process. And so this is essentially excuse me, it's been a long day and it's only Tuesday or a long week, essentially a guided personal statement. So our graduate faculty have said, this is the information we really would like to know from our applicants. And so they just straight ask it, as opposed to saying, please offer us a personal statement. That's pretty open-ended and may not serve as much as a use or a resource when they're completing their holistic admission review. Additionally, for international applicants, for those applications, the graduate school and university will require, for many, but not all, language, English proficiency scores, and financial documentation. And very lastly, the way the applications are reviewed at our department level is that graduate faculty members will review applications and they will come up with the recommendations. That recommendations either going to be admit, and then if it is admit, what level of admission. There is full admission, there's provisional admission and probationary admission, and then there's denial. Now, if an admission is if an admission is the consensus of the recommendation to move forward, that recommendation to move forward goes to the graduate school with a graduate faculty member's name attached to it to serve as your major professor, which at K-State, it's similar to an advisor or a mentor. I wouldn't say it's strictly an academic advisor position. It's typically one that will guide professional development, maybe not course options or some of the logistics, which our academic advisors are pros at. So major professorship is meant to be more of a mentor or professional developer help connect, network, those kinds of things, help with research ideas. And so every student who comes into our program upon admission has a major professor assigned to them. We do this for a couple of reasons, but the most important reason is that we would like to have our students who are admitted not necessarily float around in the system. We want you to have an anchor of somebody who's you're assigned to from the very beginning, from day one. And so that's the reason that we do that. Now, the downside to that is if we have major professor or graduate faculty members who aren't able to serve as major professors for an applicant for a variety of reasons, whether it be time or funding, if funding is a deal breaker, then we would not be able to admit that person into our program. So there is some downsides to that, but definite strengths to that is we want to make sure that everyone who's admitted to the program feel that they have a home and they have a connection right off the bat. So a little bit more about our application review process. I discussed it kind of, I suppose, in conjunction with what is needed to submit an application. But for our review process, we do have deadlines. International deadlines are hyperlinked there, but there's a graduate, if I go to international, I may have some international joinees. Oh, well, let me when I'm in presentation mode. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, and we can tour around the website once we get to that point. So international applicant deadlines are set by the university, not by the department, because of the additional requirements that are needed for visa status and I-9s and those kinds of things. Now we also have domestic deadlines that are rolling out pretty much brand new the last couple of weeks. This is a process change for our department. So now we have priority deadlines of June 1st for fall enrollment, November 1st for spring, and April 1st for summer. So we are just on the cusp of that April 1st deadline. So if you're looking that you might want to start in the NDSS program this summer, having a completed application to us by April 1st will be the priority deadline. Now, when I say completed application, that's you submitting your application and then also your recommenders submitting their recommendations so that it's ready for review by April 1st. So, and that process is really a administrative teamwork in terms of your recommender and CollegeNet, the graduate school, and myself to be able to make sure that we have all of those pieces put together, that you've completed your supplemental application form, those 3 recs are in, and everything for your online application is there. And so when I am reviewing applications and putting the pieces together, I will send emails with updates of the status of your application. So you'll receive an email from me that says, hey, it's complete and it's been filed for review. And so you have that sort of confirmation come through when everything has been received. As I mentioned, we've moved away for the last almost 2 years now to a holistic review process where we don't require the GRE or the idea of replacing sort of that quantitative assessment tool to see really, is that a predictor of success in graduate school? Our graduate faculty felt like they might be able to predict success in other ways, namely the applicant information form that's been created. So your answers to that will tell graduate faculty a lot about sort of your skill sets and your goals, your interests in graduate school. And so that is a pretty valuable piece of information and a big important part of your application packet. Then departmental graduate faculty will meet in accordance with the deadlines. So including international and domestic deadlines, that does result in about 5 to 6 times a year. So while we admit to start in fall, spring, and summer, so there's 3 points of entry, I should say, in terms of when you can start in the NDSS program. There's about 5 to 6 times a year that you could actually have your application reviewed for that next coming up cycle. So that gives you an idea of the pace. So it could be 6 to 8 weeks or so between application deadlines, but we would set that expectation. So when your application is completed, and I let you know that, I usually try to set a timeline expectation of when it may be reviewed, depending on how close you are to one of these deadlines, and go from there. Now, there is a double layered review. So for graduate applications, they all start, no matter what program you're in, at K-State, they will all start at the department level. So department immediately receives those applications. And if they pass the department level, meaning the department will offer a recommendation to the graduate school for admission, then the graduate school has to do the ultimate sign off. And the graduate school is the only entity that can offer formal admission. So while the department can say, your application has moved forward, this is what the recommendation is, there isn't a formal admission or offer from the department, only from the graduate school, from the university level. So many times departments will have higher bars of requirements than the graduate school. So it makes sense that anything that passes the department level would pass grad school level, but not always. And they have to make sure that the admission category and that the recommendation is correct and appropriate for the application packet. And so that may take an additional week or two, depending. And so we're looking at probably 2 to 2.5 months for the entire process currently. So in terms of our NDSS, just a snapshot of really what it is. It's 30 total credit hours. So if we're looking at what we're used to seeing from a bachelor's degree of being 120 credits, 30 doesn't seem like too many. Usually the pace is, I wouldn't say slower, but on average, we have a large variety of how many classes someone is wanting to take in a semester. We have some that take only 1 credit or take 1 class, 3 credits, or sometimes the higher end is 3 classes a semester, which is 9 credits. But really over 9 is kind of discouraged depending on the student or what point in their program they're in. So you're not usually looking to take 12, 15, 17 credits a semester at all in grad school. It's more like 3, 6, or 9. And so the 30 credits is looking to take at least 2 years to finish. And you have 3 options within that. And all of these sum up to 30 credits. So there's no difference in the total credit hours. The difference lies in where those hours are attributed. So you can do a thesis, you can do a report, which I call a thesis light in essence, or you can do coursework only. All of them require a critical application piece to it. That's really what graduate school is taking the information that we've learned and applying it to a topic critically that we're interested in, and that we would like to see, either have it something we integrate into our professional goals or desires or life currently in our careers. So that's really that synthesis of taking information, learning it, applying it, and critically evaluating a topic based on what you've learned in graduate school is really the essence of graduate school or graduate education. And so in all 3 of those options, you're going to have some element of that. It really just depends on the dose of that. So a thesis is, I'm going to do a full out research project. I'm going to have participants or whatever happens to be, lab supplies, something like that. You're likely going to need a grant, have some money, secure funding, have something through IRB. And so it's very intensive. And a lot of your hours, at least 6 to 8 of those 30 hours are devoted just to your thesis report or thesis project. A report is in essence a thesis light, as I mentioned. So it's, let's plan out a project, let's do a literature review, but maybe we're not going to full out do all the research that's required, right? So that could be kind of a report option. And then coursework only, or like pilot studies might be somewhat of a report option. And then coursework only, you have 3 hours dedicated to your final culminating capstone project, where you are to create or spend time on a project that essentially isn't a thesis, isn't a report, but does have a written and oral component to it. So it probably would require a literature review of seeing, what kind of science is out there in terms of studies and the topic that you're interested in doing or presenting on and focusing on, and doing some sort of critical application piece that way. So coursework only is only 3 credits towards that 30, but regardless of which one you choose, which doesn't have to be decided today or now, It doesn't really have to be discussed until after your first semester, or after about 9 credits in the program. You'd really want to talk about, okay, which option am I going to choose? And that's a great conversation to have with your major professor, because they can really help offer some advice there. All of our courses are offered through K-State Global Campus and through Canvas, which is our content management system here at K-State. So while we have that distance modality, it depends on the instructor on whether it be synchronous or asynchronous, and what those requirements might be in terms of the actual course content and expectations, but all of it would be delivered online. There's many different interests that could fit under the NDSS program. As I mentioned, there's a larger net to be cast in terms of those who would be interested in this program and those who are eligible for this program. Thus, there are quite a few disciplines where you can take some of these classes, and I'll show you some classes here in a moment just to give you an idea of what that might look like in terms of content. Of course, the tuition rate would follow global campus rate plus fees, and then we have our deadlines restated there. So here is on our left-hand side, if I'm just going to use the coursework option as a example, here's our core. So of the 30 credits, there's about 10 or so that you have to take. So you have to take a professional communication course in our department. You have to take a graduate course in our department to get a graduate degree in our department, which sounds silly to say, but I will mention a lot of the courses, the graduate courses that are offered in our department. However, your major professor and subsequently your committee, which is 2 other people on your or graduate faculty who are kind of on your team. So if I had Team Erica, I have my major professor and 2 other graduate faculty members on my committee, really help guide and dictate what could count towards my master's degree. And that doesn't mean it has to be a graduate course in nutrition. It has to be a graduate course, so 600 level and above, but it could be in any department and anything that's offered through global university wide. So we do say, hey, if you are getting a master's in nutrition, sure, it would be nice if at least one of those was a graduate course in nutrition. Likely more than one will be, but we want to make sure that that was in there as our requirement. And then if we are going to do the coursework only option, you would take 3 credits of FNDH 897. And that is an independent study course that is completely devoted to your culminating experience. So if you see here, and then a stats course. So down here in a stats, you choose one of those 3, not all 3. So if you have 3 credits of stats, 3 credits of 897, usually 3 credits, usually most courses come in 3 credit chunks, and then 1 credit hour professional communications course, you're looking at about 10 hours. And the professional communications course, I'm probably getting too in depth here, and 897 come towards the end, right? So we're going to use this speech course in essence. So we want to use this independent study course to help prepare us for our final defense, right? So every graduate student has to do a defense, so an oral presentation that's open to the public. And so those things tend to happen in our last semester, our last year, our last semester in the program. So the stats can kind of get out of the way early. You can take a graduate course in FNDH. So here on the right is some graduate courses that are offered in our department that would fit the bill that are offered online to fit this FNDH graduate level course. Or you notice we have some that are under 700 level. So here at K-State, 600 level and above is considered graduate credit, but 600 level is kind of a gray area. So I guess I should say 100 level to 600 level can be undergraduate, but then 600 level to 800 level is master's degree. And so that 600 level is kind of a gray area where it can be both undergraduate or graduate. And so as a graduate student, you would take these courses for graduate credit and count them towards your graduate degree. However, we want to make sure that the majority of our hours come from 700 level and above. So you have like a 600 level bucket that you can spend in that budget. And then beyond that, you'll have to be 700 level and above. So here are our nutrition courses to give you an idea of our curriculum. Additionally, I mentioned that we also have that MS in dietetics. So we have access to some of the courses that are taught through that consortium model. Even if they're not taught directly through K-State, we do have students who are not in GP Idea or not in the MS and Dietetics program, but want to take a course in that curriculum. And so that is a possibility. However, which it makes sense that MS and Dietetics students get first priority to these classes. And so you're put on a wait list immediately once you express interest in maybe wanting to take one of these courses. And then usually it takes about a couple weeks before the semester, you have an idea whether you got in or not, depending on the course and the popularity. We have a campus coordinator, Ashley, who is wonderful at managing all the GP Idea programs across K-State. So there are some additional courses that you might find look kind of interesting to you. You will see that the GP Idea program has a very strong clinical focus, where these are courses that are not taught specifically at K-State, but are cross-listed, so it would count as K-State credit. So there's no sort of transfer process or any of that. That's already been worked out with the consortium agreement. So you would enroll in this class, you would take it as K-State credit, but in reality, the day-to-day logistics might be taking it in Blackboard at KU or a different university that might have a different CMS system. However, you're taking it and K-State sees it and identifies it as K-State credit. I've probably gone on way too long. Oh my gosh, I'm almost at my 30 minutes. Okay. So financial aid is available. Again, there's some links here for you to look at. Now, for graduate students, it doesn't really come in the form of grants and like outright money or subsidies in that way, but it is in the form of loans. And so you can still fill out a FAFSA for your graduate degree education. You do need to be enrolled in at least 5 credits a semester in order to be eligible for financial aid for that semester for graduate, and it has to be graduate credits. So there's some other links here that you might find helpful. As far as scholarships, there are scholarships for the entire student body through the KSN network. That's the second bullet point under scholarships here. That will, it encompasses the KSN, or the K-State Scholarship Network, encompasses every scholarship opportunity at the entire university. So that will include, we have department scholarships, we have college scholarships for graduate students, and that gets rolled in to that system. So every graduate student and every undergraduate student alike will fill out an application in KSN to see what they get matched with in terms of awards. So that's something to definitely do every year. In addition to that, there are scholarships specifically for GP Idea students and specifically for global students. So you can apply to both of these sources in terms of applying for scholarships. Before I get into the employments and field of hire, I quickly just want to go through our website because I do want to show you a few things. So this is our graduate program page for our department. And as I mentioned, we have quite a few master's programs listed. Many of these, this is the GP Idea program listed. We're highlighting this nutrition, dietetics, and sensory sciences degree program, but we do have other degree programs in the department, or they're interdepartmental, meaning food science and public health. We have many different departments across K-State that pitch in and support those programs. So if I click here, it gives you some information on the NDSS program. And largely a lot of what I've been talking about, I've summed up in this graduate program details link. And so you can click that and see a lot of, this has just been updated, I think last week, in terms of additional information. So I haven't found our websites to be horribly friendly sometimes, and it's probably just me not knowing how to navigate websites too well. However, I feel like putting some of this, synthesizing some of this information in one spot is kind of nice. So you see our deadlines up there, what exactly is needed to start an online application. I mentioned that I hyperlinked, excuse me, where is it? I hyperlinked international applicants, and now I'm not able to find it. Let me see here. Is a case in point what I was talking about. If you go ahead and you can click on graduate application materials, it will put up the application materials, as well as, I thought it would also put up international. Here we go. There we go. That's kind of hard to find, but international students, this goes to the graduate school page. And so we have application deadlines that are there. That is for every single program across the university, no changing that. But you can see that there's lots of different things like the financial documents and the language documents that all need to be filled out as well. So it's a really helpful place for you or anybody you know who might be applying as an international student. All right, let me move my Zoom bar and see what else I can find here. So, where all am I? Other things I wanted to show, let me see here. Oh, the requirements might be kind of nice to see. That's usually the first question is, okay, now remind me what I need to take. And so you can go to course requirements and find the core. So this is basically what do I have to take in the program? And you'll see that 20-ish electives or 20-ish of the credits are elective. So you can really choose what you want to comprise those 20 credits of outside of the core. Looks like I'm just spinning. So I'm going to go on to the next one, which I showed in my screenshot. If I go back to the PowerPoint, this is really what that this is what that is showing, is that core right here for coursework, thesis, as well as report. So I also wanted to show some sample programs of study. So this is what your program could look like under 30 credits. And so it gives some examples of coursework only option of different things that you could choose. You really need a total of 30 credits. Sometimes it doesn't always work out directly straight to 30. Sometimes it's 31 or 32 hours. Then we have also the thesis option. So you can do those kinds of things as well. So you see that you spend 6 hours in your thesis of the 30. So you spend more time doing that. Okay, let me get back on track here and then I will have some time for questions. So in terms of what we can use our masters for, many times, of course, it makes a total sense for students to say, hey, you know, what's going to make me employable with this master's, or what's really going to help me in terms of the career field. So largely our graduates of our master's program, I wouldn't say largely, it's very common for our graduates to stay in the academic world. So with a master's degree, you can teach at the college level. So I have a master's degree. I don't have a doctorate, but I'm able to be an instructor at a state university. And so many will go into teaching and instruction. They may go into research, or they may continue on into their doctorate. We also have graduates who go into industry. So they work for corporations, or they do research and development in that sort of a sector or arm. So it's not, so we say industry or academia. So in essence, it's not necessarily a university, it's a for-profit company. We obviously know that a registered dietitian nutritionist, many of you may be very interested in becoming or earning to become exam eligible to be an RDN. We know that the masters will be required to sit for the exam in 2024. Many times those with our nutrition masters will find benefits or opportunities in community nutrition sector and the public health sector. So health educators, potentially private practice or counseling is largely, community nutrition is largely where you will see most opportunities for a master's degree, specifically if you don't have the RDN credential. Most of the sector that's gatekept that really would require the RDN is clinical, so working in hospital or outpatient or clinic in that essence, or doing any sort of medical nutrition therapy. So treating a condition with diet is something that would be reserved just for an RDN. But many times education, counseling, motivation, support, coaching, all those things that can equip you with your master's degree here. So again, more resources for information. There's specific pages to GP Idea and our other graduate programs. We already toured this one just now. And then if you really have a trouble sleeping, you can read our catalogs. So that has all the nitty gritty in the 2 different online graduate programs that we have. So this will link to our catalog and the most recent one. So the 2022-2023 is in progress right now, and that's the one that's linked to be able to look at everything that was really kind of reiterated in this. So I hope I covered everything, Brittany. Let me know if I missed anything, but I'll throw it back to you And then we can do some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Erica, for that presentation. If you have any questions that Erica wasn't able to answer in that presentation, please use the Q&A function or the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those.
Just looking at the chat, everybody's introductions. We've got people from all over.
So we have a question from a participant asking if you can highlight some courses suitable for a sensory sciences focus.
Yes, so let me go ahead and show. So sensory sciences, so the title of our degree, that's actually a great question because I wanted to get to that as well. And then I'll talk a little bit about our sensory coursework. So our department is large and diverse. And so to find a master's degree that really covered everything that was where we have expertise in our department, that's how it became that very long NDSS. So nutrition, dietetics, and sensory sciences. And the sensory arm is actually located now strictly in our Olathe campus, but they do a course global. And so we're on a different campus. They're about 2 hours away from us. And so sensory science is more about the R&D of product development. So not in terms of sensory behaviors or sensory disorders, but a way of how can we create products that customers want and that we can develop in terms of like trained panelists to be able to improve products in many different capacities, not just flavor, not just nutrition, not just shelf life, but a lot of aspects. So our sensory science department or our sensory analysis center is a client. Their clients include food manufacturers, pet food manufacturers, personal hygiene or care products who hire K-State to do research in order to make the product more appealing or fix potentially a problem that might be going on with it that they're finding in their research. And so if I go out here, let me escape here. And the point why I'm finding this is that you don't have to choose nutrition, dietetics, or sensory sciences. That is the title of the entire degree program. However, you can tailor it to one way or the other, or you can dabble in all of them. So it's really up to you and what you'd like to do. So sorry, I have my ugly desktop up here. And so if I was to look here, so like we see we have some food science courses that also would highly correlate with the sensory analysis or sensory sciences. I'm going to quickly, should have had our catalog pulled up, but I don't. So you can watch me get there. Remember the catalog. Oh, that's not. Hey, that's the wrong KSU. So when you look at our catalog, this is again what the department or the university holds as like the contract, right? So in order to have information, which is it's available publicly, but it's not always the easiest thing to navigate and or find or read. So it's kind of like, you know, government websites and things of that nature. So if I was to go down and show you all the courses that we have in our department, it gives a good list of some sensory courses as well. So here's our department. And if I was to just choose some courses, you could see some of them are lumped out into sub-disciplines. But what you would mostly see are these 800s. So they've got some kind of a cascade or different series of what you would count for sensory analysis. So you have a descriptive sensory analysis. These are all 1 credit courses. So methods, food and fragrance, non-food, panel training, rapid methods. And then you have consumer research, qualitative consumer research fundamentals, consumer research, you said 845 all the way through 848. So it's very much geared towards sensory analysis, and either working in academia, but likely industry, right? So your students that are focusing on sensory either have an interest in food science, a background in food science, or desire to go into food science and work for potentially one of these firms or companies that do product development. I hope that answered your question.
Erica, we also have a couple of questions from individuals who already have a bachelor's degree and are interested in becoming a registered dietitian. And we're wondering if the NDSS program is ASCEND accredited or what they can do to be eligible for that.
Fantastic answer or question. Yes. So the NDSS alone is not sufficient to have you become exam eligible. It does check off the master's requirement for 2024, but ASCEND, so the ASCEND accredited coursework is currently found in our bachelor's degrees and undergraduate programs. And so the courses that ASCEND says that you need to take to order to receive your verification statement are all at the undergraduate level currently here at K-State. And so those courses would need to be taken in addition to graduate courses in order to then essentially give you a verification statement to apply for internship and finish your master's, complete your master's so that you are RDN exam eligible. So options, if you already have a bachelor's degree, you wouldn't be able to apply for the concurrent BSMS option due to that previous bachelor's degree. And so we have had students in the past who have taken a large majority of non-credit courses. Like they've just it's kind of explained as an add-on, but really it's a lot. Like it's usually 70 some credits. When you're looking at the master's is only 30 and you're like, well, I have to do a 70 credit add-on. In the non-degree world is posed a few issues in terms of financial aid and other things. And so we're trying to rework that to make it more beneficial for administration and also for students, so that many are paying out of pocket for that because it's non-degree, simply because it's non-degree, that creates a lot of hardship and also some things at the university level that there are caps on how much you can just take as a non-degree student. So even if you are degree seeking in the master's program, there's been some complexities in terms of very large non-degree programs like this program that I'm discussing, or this option, I suppose, that we're discussing, since it's not really a program. And so the department is trying to rework that into several different solutions or ideas have been proposed to be able to figure out how students can do the master's program, but maybe they have a bachelor's degree and they don't have an interest in earning a second bachelor's degree, how they can still get that coursework to be able to have their verification statement to then apply to internship to then sit the exam. So there's a lot of different steps and cascades that are falling right now. So I don't have a hard and fast answer for you outside of earning a second bachelor's degree in dietetics or nutrition and health, one of those, as long as it actually incorporates all of those ASCEND accredited courses, because a bachelor's degrees, like the coordinated program and the didactic program are all ASCEND accredited. The master's program is not. And so ASCEND is not saying you have to have an accredited master's program. They're just saying you need a master's and then also have completed ASCEND accredited coursework.
Another question, if a person enrolls in the NDSS Masters, will it limit them to 30 units or can they add on other courses and exceed the 30 units?
So it depends on probably how much you're exceeding and what those courses are in, and if they're counting towards a degree. So, for instance, if you're taking other graduate courses that aren't specific to your master's in nutrition, dietetics, and sensory sciences, graduate school will ask you why you're doing that. They'll wonder why you're taking more credits if you're not necessarily in another master's program. We do have students who are doing a dual master's. So maybe they're doing a master's in statistics and a master's in nutrition. And so that can happen. But however, besides going over maybe the 30, like by 2 or 3 credits, in order to, for explainable reasons, of maybe being at 29 or 28 or something like that, and you need to go over, it's not typically a general practice to take a whole bunch of extra graduate credit courses if they're not counting towards a master's degree or a program. If they're at the undergraduate level, it does also pose a problem because you're seen as a graduate student at K-State when you're in a graduate program. And so you actually need a special access enrollment request that needs to be approved in order for you as a graduate student to take undergraduate courses. And that then is capped at 9 credits. So, well, for undergrad, 15. So it's still capped quite low, where the university doesn't let students go too far in a non-degree seeking path, which is some of the challenges we're currently facing with trying to offer all of the DPD coursework that's essentially accredited in a non-degree fashion.
Thanks, Erica. And we have another question about the Concurrent BSMS program. And so could you maybe just clarify a little bit for people who have a bachelor's that is in another field, that whether they can do the concurrent BSMS to satisfy the Ascend accreditation and become an RD, or do they need to do the program separately?
Yeah, so yes, I will certainly seek clarification. So this is, as it's been told by administration, anybody with a bachelor's degree prior, regardless of where it is or what discipline is in, cannot apply to the concurrent BSMS program. So it's intended for those who don't currently hold a bachelor's degree. Now the rationale and it's a fairly new uncovering. So I don't know the exact rationale behind why that is. And I also am like, hey, I had a bachelor's coming to K-State. Like, why couldn't I do that if I wanted to? So that's my personal opinion, which doesn't matter. However, currently you would not be eligible to apply to the BSMS program. And so what it would mean is that you would apply to the bachelor's program to get the Ascend accredited coursework requirements done, and then the master's program, but it wouldn't be a concurrent program and it wouldn't have the efficiency that the BSMS program has. So I would say currently right now, the way it's set up at K-State, with those newfound, I suppose, parameters or boundaries or challenges, has made it's challenged the faculty in the college to figure out what to do to make this more inclusive, to make it a little bit easier. Not easy, but to make it so that it doesn't feel like you have to start back at square one, if that makes sense. Again, someone coming in with a degree not in dietetics, and I'm a current dietitian. I did it the long way, and I got a bachelor's degree in biology. Came to K-State and did a bachelor's in dietetics, and then I did a master's in public health. So I didn't do anything concurrently, and I didn't do anything efficiently, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, especially with the requirement for the exam now having to have a master's degree, and knowing that you wanted to be able to take that exam as quickly as possible after finishing your DPD coursework and your internship. So yeah, right now the option would be to do the full BS in dietetics, but not the concurrent BSMS program. So you would do the BS and then the MS.
All right, well, we have a few more minutes if anyone has any other questions. We have someone, Erica, who holds a master's and bachelor's in kinesiology. So they already have that master's degree and they're wanting to fulfill the requirements to become a registered dietitian. Since they already have that master's degree, does that mean that they should just apply to do the bachelor's in dietetics and then they would be eligible to sit for that exam?
Yes, after they complete their internship.
Okay, so yes, if you
So no master's, yeah, that master's in kines would count, would check that box. So you wouldn't have to seek another master's degree at all to become a dietitian. So it would just be a matter of completing the DPD coursework, which currently seems to be the only option of doing the bachelor's, the full bachelor's degree, and not the all of it non-degree.
And so just to clarify for everyone, that master's degree requirement to sit for that exam doesn't require the master's to be in any specific area. So if someone had a seemingly unrelated master's degree and they're changing careers, they would not need to get another master's.
Correct.
Well, as we're winding down on time here, I just want to thank everyone again for joining us. Ooh, we have another
I do
question.
see a new question. Okay, so you have a bachelor's degree in nutrition. You see a lot of the courses you already took overlap in the master's with the addition of the non-degree DPD and the Ascend accredited. Okay, but I have to take those again. So Jackie, that's a great question. And I would ask that for Carla Gerard is our online dietetics coordinator, who for all the DPD and the Ascend accredited coursework for online students, she will go through and do a transfer equivalency. They do have recency standards and grade standards. So it has to be a B or better, and it has to be, depending on the course, has to be within 5 to 10 years of having taken it. So if those things are met, then they may request a syllabus or something of that nature to be able to determine whether those things would transfer. You wouldn't have to retake that at the state. So I'd be happy. Is there a chat where I can put Carla's information? Yes, there's chat. So Carla would be able to help answer those questions a little bit better than I would, since the accredited coursework falls at the undergraduate level. And so leaving it to those who are, I'm familiar with it because I went through it, and we have students who are in undergraduate and graduate at the same time. However, I'm not an expert, so I think you'd have a better resource in Carla for undergraduate questions. But that's a great question, and it's a common question asked is, do I feel like I need to retake all of these things? And the answer is hopefully no.
Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions at this time, I want to go ahead and just thank everyone for joining us, and thank you, Erica, for that presentation. Also, if you have any questions that come up after this, feel free to reach out to us at online@ksu.edu. That's the email that's on your screen. And you'll be connected with an admissions representative who can help answer those questions for you. As well as please reach out to that email when you are ready to apply. We do have application fee waivers available for people who attended this webinar. Those are available for the summer and fall semesters. So Feel free to reach out to us at that email on the screen, and we'll provide you with an application fee waiver code.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate you organizing the event, and thank you all for joining.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Brittany.